I can't stop this feeling.
Okay, in this series of videos, we're going to take a look at some items related to Reading 51, where we'll consider issuance, trading, and funding items for a variety of different fixed income securities and fixed income markets. So first, let's again look at the main types of issuers. We got really four. The reading talks about three. I think most of the market considers municipals as its own little entity. So we're going to split it up into government issues, municipals, which are government related, corporate bonds, and corporate securities, and then structured finance securities. So we're going to look at each of these in turn. We'll start with treasuries and TIPS and look at how those government securities work. So let's look at government issues. So these are, we're mainly concerned with U.S. securities here. These are going to be treasuries. The interest, one important notation, is it's taxable at the federal level, but it's not taxed by states. So it would be tax-free at the state level. So the states cannot tax government interest or interest from government securities. Government issues or government securities have a variety of different maturities. They have different names as well. So things that are issued with less than a year to maturity are called T-bills. An important little distinction here is that these are priced as a discount bond, so you pay less than face value and then you receive face value at maturity. And we're going to look later on in the bond mathematics. We'll see how you can come up with the appropriate price and what that translates to in terms of a yield. There are also Treasury notes. These are notes that or securities, I should say, with maturities from 1 to 10 years when issued. And these are going to be sold at or very near par, and then they're going to pay coupons based on the appropriate rate. And we're going to talk in a minute about how the auction process works, and that's where the coupon payments or the coupon rates are determined. And then likewise we have treasury bonds. These are going to be longer term securities, 10 years plus. Again, these are going to be sold at or very near to par, and they're going to pay regular coupon payments as well. By the way, the coupon payments are semi-annually, every 6 months. Typically going to be 6 months from the issuance date and then on the anniversary date of the issuance all throughout the term of the bond. An important distinction with respect to government securities, government treasuries, is the credit quality. These are considered to be the safest quality, the highest quality. They're going to have very high credit quality investment grade bonds primarily because of the taxing authority of the United States. The U.S. can raise lots of money via taxation. This is true, by the way, of any sovereign bond, but the U.S. treasuries are kind of considered a bellwether, a benchmark all across the world. They're a security that's highly regarded for its safety, and you can see in different kind of economic crises, or if there's any uproar in markets, there's usually a flight to U.S. treasuries as a safe haven. So these are very high credit quality, and later on, again in the course, we'll talk about how treasuries serve as a benchmark to compare the yields for other securities. And treasuries have a variety of different coupon structures. They can be fixed rate. This would be most of the time. Most treasuries are fixed rate coupons. Besides, of course, the ones that are T-bills, the ones with less than a year to maturity. Those are going to be discount bonds, basically zero coupon bonds that are sold at a discount. There are going to be a fair amount of inflation-linked bonds, Treasury inflation-protected securities. We'll look at that one more time, a quick example. And then there are 2-year floating rate notes, FRNs, that are issued. That's the only maturity that there are floating rate notes, and we're going to look at those as well. Here's a little link if you want to take a look at and explore some of the different Treasury types of instruments, the results of auctions. We're going to look at auctions in a little bit more detail here shortly. Actually, I want to go ahead and just go to the website and let's just explore what kind of things are here. So if I click on that link and I'm shot to this is going to be a recent set of announcements. I can look at bills, notes, floating rate notes, TIPS, bonds, and then CMB. We'll skip CMB for now. Let's just look at bills. These are the short-term things. These can be 13 weeks. That's a very common maturity. It's basically 3 months. These are 6-month securities. Let's just dig into the 13 weeks. So these are sold at auction. Looks like every week, like clockwork, the Treasury is having an auction for various securities. These PDFs here, this is a link to the announcement for the August 29th auction, so you can find a little bit more information about this particular auction. The Treasury is selling 13-week T-bills or 91-day T-bills. They're issuing $45 billion worth. There's a variety of information about this particular security and about the upcoming auction. And later on we're going to look at some results for some of these auctions. Let's just look real quickly at floating rate notes. These are only 2-year variety, and if we go over here to the results, we can see that this was priced at basically the most recent 13-week Treasury bill plus a margin, and that's how the 2-year floating rate notes would work. Let's get back to our slideshow here. I'm getting a little off of the beaten path. We'll move on to the next slide. So Treasury securities are always offered by auction. So they're sealed bid auctions, so they're private auctions. It's not an open outcry kind of a thing. And it's also a single price auction, which means that whatever price ends up winning, whatever yield is probably the more appropriate way of talking about it, whatever yield wins the auction, every winning bidder receives that yield for the securities. Even if you bid a lower yield, you would receive basically the winning bid, the winning yield. And we're going to again look at this in a little bit of detail here shortly. So investors bid by submitting an acceptable yield and a desired amount. So they're going to bid, hey, I'm bidding 1.97% and I would like to buy $500 million of these securities. Now these are frequently going to be large institutions or dealers that are then going to sell these on kind of in the secondary market, in a retail setting, so to speak. But when they're making this bid, they're offering a yield, and obviously the higher the yield is, the lower the price that is being bid for those securities. So the lowest yield is gonna win the auction. And we'll talk about the mechanics again here in a second, and we'll see how bids kind of creep up, and we'll look at the winning bid and what that's called. So there are competitive bids and there are non-competitive bids. So non-competitive bids are usually retail investors, and what they're basically saying is, we'll just take whatever the result of the auction is. We're happy with whatever that number turns out to be, and we just want to buy X number of these bonds. So if you were submitting a bid, actually you wouldn't be submitting a bid. If you're submitting an order through the Treasury Direct website, you would just receive the winning bid for however many securities you wanted. If it was $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, you would receive the winning bid as long as you're submitting this non-competitive type of bid in the auction. The winners are those that bid up to or have a lower bid than the accepted yield amount, and everyone gets the same yield on the securities. Again, that's the single price auction idea. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop here before we get into how the auction works. That'll be more fully explained in the second video, so I'm going to go ahead and stop now, and we'll see you in the next video.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. Lips as sweet as candy, its taste is on